welcome to another Files from the Officia Tempere. Today I'm going to be, starting a whole series of looking at the books, or reviewing the books, and discussing them, background in that, of the Horus Heresy Primarch ones. I'm going to eventually hopefully get into the Horus Heresy ones here and there, because there's over 40 some of them now, and that's a lot to do. But I'm looking at the Primarch ones mostly, because they actually help define a lot background and character for the book. So if you're interested in something just for the Primarchs, instead of having to read all 40 some odd books of the Horus Heresy, you want to know basically what helped them fall or stay loyal during the Horus Heresy, I recommend picking these up. There's been a few already. Fulgrim, Logar, Russ, and Perturabo. So the one I'm going to be talking about today is Perturabo, because he's the Primarch of the Iron Warriors. Now, Primarch of the Iron Warriors. And I always was, when I was reading the stuff about him, it was hard to understand why the Iron Warriors really sort of went to chaos. Since the Horus Heresy novels have started coming out and more of the fluff has been out there, they've expanded upon why they did switch to chaos. But originally it was sort of, okay, we followed Horus, we were upset at the Emperor. Okay. Mortarion was, his entire legion was corrupted by Nurgle, and he had no choice but to, convert and follow Nurgle in order to save his legion. Fulgrim, the peacock he got sucked in by a blade, and, a demon-possessed blade, demon possessed him. He went a little crazy, and then went with Slaanesh. So like I said, and Angron was just, crazy, psychotic, bloodthirsty guy, so Khorne all the way. And Logar, he went because he was, the mastermind for all the Chaos Gods himself. And Horus, he was a big guy who won against the Emperor. But Perturabo was one of those ones of, I need more. They're interesting. The Iron Warriors stuff is interesting. Iron within, iron without, keep going, slog through no matter what the odds are, and just keep going ahead. Similar a little bit to the Death Marines, where they just go forward, go Death Guard, where they keep going forward and just not retreat. But again, as for me, it was always, what's with Perturabo and the Iron Warriors? So when the Horus Heresy started coming out, there was a couple of little short stories here and there, with some Iron Warrior guys. The Hrud, probably not pronouncing that right, but the Hrud, and that did help cause a lot of damage to the Iron Warriors. And as I said, as you're reading some of the Horus Heresy books, they're realizing that they're stretched thin, they're not getting the glory they thought they should. Now, Perturabo does deal sort of his early years on Olympia, where he's growing up, and then, cuts into just before this Horus Heresy is starting during the Great Grand Crusade, when they are involved with Hrud and things like that. So it's going for, back in time, obviously back in time, it's Warhammer 30,000 instead of 40k, but back shortly before he was found, when he's grown up in Olympia, and then, later on during the Hrud invasion and that, and then dealing with the attack on Olympia when it rebelled against him. So I recommend this book. It's by Guy Haley. He has written a few other Warhammer 40k books. Like I said, if you're a fan of the Horus Heresy books themselves, or just Warhammer 40k, and you want to have some more background on Perturabo, I recommend picking this one up. Like I said, all the Primarch ones I'm going to eventually do, but for me this was the one I wanted to start with because it fleshes Perturabo out really well. Now if you haven't read it, or if you haven't seen the Warhammer wiki page, I'm going to give some spoilers here now. It's interesting because all the Primarchs have flaws in them. They're sort of still human, more human than human, but still human in the background. And Perturabo, again, in the Horus Heresy books, they make him out to be, he's not just a very smart tactician who knows how to break sieges and all that sort of stuff. He's also an extremely intelligent inventor. He knows how to improve technology. He would have been an Archmagos probably if he wasn't a Primarch. So he had interesting ideas, not just for war, but for art, for architecture, all sorts of things. He was the builder, basically. He would have been the builder in peacetime. But his upbringing made him, not trust anybody in power. He was completely he wasn't by himself, but there was so much power struggles going on in Olympia, and realized he was just being used for what he could do. So this led him to not trust anyone at all, and always have this sort of back in mind, like, I'm not being rewarded, or why are people saying I'm doing this? Do they really mean it, or there's some ulterior motive to them? So as you see him growing up, you realize he becomes a little bit paranoid, and not very trusting, and also feelings of, he wants to be recognized. Like, there's that as well. Like, even though he's paranoid, he still wants to be recognized for being able to do things. So when the Emperor comes and gets him, and then he makes the Fourth Legion, like basically much the siege breakers, the fortress breakers, and the garrison guards for the Grand Crusade in this area, they get stretched out, and they start to feel like they're not being recognized for the glory. The Ultramarines and the Blood Angels and all that, they get glory heaped upon the Emperor's children, gets glory heaped on them for their wins and victories. Whereas the Iron Warriors are just slogging through non-stop. Now, also part of Perturabo's thing was that he didn't care about taking losses. So he'd be willing to grind people into the meat. He would have been like, World War I general, perfect. Just grind them in. As long as the end we win. So a lot of that was him also doing it to himself, because he was the one bleeding his own men, to try and just keep going instead of retreating or trying different ideas, instead of, just keep throwing bodies at it. So like I said, because that, you get to see how he grows, and Horus is the one he talks to a lot, and he's close with, and he feels the Emperor is like, like from his childhood, just using him just to be there, just the military genius, military tactician, not an artist, not an architect, just go in, get bloodied, kill people, take over planets. So he feels Horus, is the one who's going to be able to make the Imperium the way it's supposed to be, and Perturabo will get recognized for his deeds. So then he becomes very loyal to Horus. So when Horus does the treason, Perturabo goes with him because he's loyal. And then, like I said, in the book, and they don't talk about how he starts going to chaos. This is more just him getting to the mental state where he's realizing he's on Horus's side and not the Emperor's. For him to convert more, there's part of that is the an Angel Extremis, Horus Heresy book, where after he realizes he has no choice at a certain point, he just takes his legion into the Eye of Terror. And then there's a new one out, Talhorn, where they've come through the Eye of Terror and they've been changed from what they've seen there. But he's still, like I said, still loyal to Horus overall. And that's where it's good. So I apologize for joining on for a while, but I do recommend you check out Perturabo book. I know a lot of stuff is on the Wiki Warhammer 40k page, but it's nice just to read. And like I said, for people who are fans of the Iron Legion playing Chaos, this gives you a little bit more background of their tactics, and just names, and just who they are and stuff like that. So I highly recommend it. Anyways, thank you very much. Put comments and feedback as much as possible. Thank you.